Men, and as usual, I use the term loosely. The engine in front of you over here is nearly done. I think I just did maybe one or two videos about this one, probably the flywheel assembly. It's almost done. It's going to Australia, and you can see it's missing the entire primary. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to start putting the primary drive and the kickstart and all that back together again. As is often the case, the video I'm actually making isn't the video I started out to make, but we'll get into that in just a minute or two here. But anyway, we're going to put this together. I got some things to tell you, and in case you're interested, you could help the channel out. Get yourself a coffee cup, get yourself a sticker. Links to buy these things will be in the description down below. Let's get on with the subject at hand. Okay, this bike was, this engine was missing, well, it was missing a lot of stuff, but it was missing all the kickstart parts, it was missing all the primary parts. And the easiest way to obtain kickstart stuff is to just buy the whole kickstart kit from V-Twin. And had there been any other viable alternative, believe me, I would have taken it. You know, you could round the stuff up used on eBay. It's likely to be, oops, you know, from my buddy Sean. My buddy Sean subscribes to the channel. He mentions how he likes to get up Sunday morning, have a cup of coffee, watch it with his daughter. I'm not going to use the F word at all in this video. No more that. I'm going to keep it clean today. But anyway, you know, you could buy it used on eBay, in which case you're probably going to get parts. Oops. You know, there might be some new old stock floating around out there, but you're going to pay, you know, 2 or 3 or 4 times what I think the parts are actually worth. So I take my chances with V-Twin. And, you know, to their credit, they are one of the few places you could get this stuff. You know, they got a kickstart arm. It's hard to screw those up. Kickstart pedal, hard to screw those up. Spring, hard to screw those up. The gear, kickstart shaft gear, that could be screwed up. The transmission shaft gear, I haven't even opened this. I haven't taken a look at it yet, but I'm concerned about that. But anyway, we'll put this on. We'll see how these parts work out. The one thing I have taken a look at already is the ratchet plate. And what a pain in the butt this is going to be. Okay, when hunting up parts for this thing, I went through my stash and I managed to find an entire clutch, a primary chain, a front sprocket, clutch plates, everything. But all of the stuff I had is missing, of course, the ratchet plate. So, you know, the first thing you got to do is rivet the ratchet plate on. Easy enough to do if it's had a ratchet plate previously installed and the hole's already there. But of course the holes are not here because this is off of an XLH and it didn't have a kickstart on it. So the question then arises, well, how do you locate this thing? And there's 2 or 3 ways that come to mind with varying degrees of likelihood of success. My experience has been, you know, you could try to eyeball this thing and clamp it down and drill it. It's going to end up being off center. The easiest way to do it is to have some kind of a fixture or an arbor. And you could then line it up, center it over the arbor, drill your holes, and that'll work pretty good. But I got a new mill out there with a digital readout on it, and I thought, let's do this on the DRO because it's theoretically possible to locate the center of the hole and treat these rivets holes like a bolt circle and lay it all on the DRO and have it be 100% accurate. But these mother refuse to cooperate with anything. Let me show you what I got here. Okay, bear with me while I kind of delve into a little bit of theoretical on this. Okay, so here is where the planned video begins to fade away and the video that got made begins. I went through kind of a long-winded explanation about the geometry and how to do the layout on a DRO. And what I found was, after very carefully measuring the distance between the rivet holes, I found out that they were not properly spaced. The distance between the holes was unequal from one hole to the next, with a variance of up to 15 thousandths of an inch. So that kind of threw out making this thing according to the mathematical precision the DRO would have given you, and I ended up making it to the more practical reality of how to fit the ratchet plate with the uneven holes to the clutch hub. So I'm going to go to the way I usually do it, is I'll put my fixture in here, pop this on here, put a rivet in, and then drill the rest of the holes. Anyway, HeadCycle strikes again. There's workarounds for all this, but this is new. Why should a guy have to do a workaround on there? You spend your money, you buy your parts, you expect something to be dimensionally correct at least. Just by the nature of this thing, I would have thought a tolerance of, plus or minus 3 or 2 thousandths would have been acceptable. When you're looking at plus or minus 5 or 7 or 9 in some cases, that's just going to be quite a bit on a thing like this. And, granted, it's not a, power being transmitted through this thing other than the power of your leg being snapped in two when the ratchet slips off. It's just not a good thing. Anyway, we're going to fix this up and make it work. When you want to rivet one of these ratchet plates on, if you were just to stick a drill in here, because the hole is countersunken, there's no depth really to the hole, you could end up off center. If you laid it on there and center punched it, the point on whatever you're punching it with could be quite a bit off center. So what I do for the first hole or two is I turn it upside down. That way the punch or whatever you're punching it with is somewhat constrained. And I give it a little dimple to follow in. So I'm going to go ahead and drill that now. All right, I got one hole drilled. I just have a rivet sitting in there to kind of keep it lined up, and I'll punch a couple of more of these. And I'll walk them over the drill press and drill them. I just drilled a random 4 holes, and now that I know the holes are not evenly spaced, I need to mark this thing so that when I get the rest of the holes all drilled, I could put it back on and line the marks up, and I'll know that the holes will fit the ratchet plate will fit the clutch hub. Okay. The other thing I notice about this ratchet plate is the teeth are cut at a very slight angle that, I don't know how to demonstrate this exactly, but the teeth are cut at a slight angle. They actually angle back a little bit this direction. So when the gear engages it, it wants to slide off of the teeth. I don't recommend this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to get a Dremel tool, well, I got it right here, and I'm going to back cut all of these teeth just a tiny little bit so that the tooth is angled this way, and that will help hold it engaged instead of tending to push it disengaged. And that's kind of a natural result. This thing is stamped out of a chunk of steel, and when you make the stamping, the natural reaction of the metal is going to be to kind of fold away like that. So we're going to try to fix that. Like I said, I don't recommend it. The problem being is if you grind any of these too much, the weight could be borne by, some of the teeth or one of the teeth. It won't be born equally. But I've got a brand new ratchet plate that hasn't been monkeyed with before. I'm just going to take a very light touch at it and back cut these a little bit. All right, let's bang a few rivets in. You've seen me use this fixture before. Got a little anvil that sticks up. It fits in a little recess around the countersink. Keeps the hub from turning. And then just pound away. All right, so ratchet plate is riveted on. All the teeth are back cut. There's actually a little gap in here right now because I cut all the way through, and let me try to show you why. This is the original condition. The ramp right here had a little bit of an angle like this, so that when the square corner of the kicker gear engaged this thing, it'd want to slide off, causing it, of course, to slip and causing you to break your knee. The Dremel tool, I used a cutoff wheel, and of course the cutoff wheel, you know, came in at an angle like this. And the end of the cutoff wheel is somewhat rounded, just the nature of it, it's not square. So the corner at the base of these teeth also was a little bit rounded. It was possible that this corner would come in contact with this rounded corner and shove the gear off, making it slip and causing you to break your leg. So what I ended up doing was, when I reversed that cutout, in order to make sure that this corner here didn't contact a rounded corner, I just took the Dremel tool and I went ahead and cut all the way through there to give it some relief. So now there's no chance that a rounded corner is going to be able to push the square edge on this gear off and cause it to slip and cause you to break your leg. So anyway, this is done. I'm happy with it. I think it's going to work pretty good. You know, I was playing with this thing before, and when you engage it, you know, and put a little load on it, you could actually kind of make it pop off. You know, the angle here was kind of inducing that malfunction. And now when you do the same thing, you could feel it's more firmly engaged. And, you know, even if I pull out on it a little bit, it doesn't want to cause a disengagement. So this, I think, is as good as it could get. I'm going to put it together. So let's move on with the rest of the bits and pieces of this kickstart setup and see what other, if any, well, you know there will be, if any other problems I run into. All right, kickstart shaft looks okay. Kickstart shaft gear looks okay. You know, notice this is one of those rebranded fake sifting parts. And a lot of pits in through here. When it's together on the engine and the starter's installed, you can't see that. But, you know, just something to keep in mind. They also did not drill the hole for the grease fitting that goes in here. So, I mean, I could do it if I wasn't so lazy. But we're going to leave the owner a few little details to finish up there. This owner wanted stainless steel hardware everywhere. And I'm sure you've heard me say it before, if you're going to use stainless steel hardware, you got to have some anti-seize on the bolts. Stainless steel is prone to galling, especially into aluminum. So we put a little anti-seize on there. Okay, in the scheme of things, this is a minor problem. The kickstart shaft gear is hitting ever so slightly the inside of the primary cover. Right in through here, you can see a little mark on it. And I thought I saw one more spot. No, maybe that was it. Maybe that's all. So I think I'm going to take this out to the big disc sander and take a little metal off of here in order to keep it from hitting. I don't want to take metal off of inside of the crankcase, and because if I grind in there, I'm going to get aluminum and grinding dust and everything in the bearings and the trans and all that. So this is going out to the dirty shop, and we're going to peel a little metal off of here to make sure it doesn't hit. You could see what I removed. The gear itself was a little bit proud of this plate, so I just took them down, made them both even. I think it'll be okay. Let's give it a try. All right, I got it bolted on, nuts on there tight. I'll spin it around with the crescent wrench from the other side. That's actually really nice. One of the things that will give you fits with these Kickstarters is if the bushing on the sprocket shaft side is not exactly lined up with the bushing on the primary case side, the shaft will bind. So getting the bushing lined up with the other bushing, getting this bushing lined up with that bushing is critical. And I've had problems with some of these covers, not being correct, and it gets to be a problem. But anyway, this one works good. So that was one thing that could have gone wrong that didn't, and another thing that went wrong that didn't have to. So that's not bad. Okay, next up we got the spacer, the gear, and the spring. Stuff looks okay, fits nicely in there. Kickstart spring anchor bolt. Kickstart spring. I find that really you don't need a lot of preload on the spring. A quarter of a 90 degrees of tension on it's really all you need to make the lever pop back up. I think way back at the beginning of this video, when I unboxed this thing and took the kickstart lever out of the box, I said something like, you know, they got a kickstart arm, it's hard to screw those up. Kickstart. Guess what? I was wrong. These managed to jack up the kickstart arm. Apparently, the hole that fits over the square end of the shaft is way too big, and the slot that's supposed to allow the kickstart lever to flex is too short. In either case, you can't tighten the bolt and the nut enough so that the kickstart arm will actually tighten on the shaft. And I mean, I tightened this thing ludicrous tight. I cranked the hell out of it, and I could not make it tighten up on there. So, on to plan B. This kickstart lever is a pretty beefy piece of metal, I'll give them that. Nonetheless, I endeavored to lengthen the slot in the arm in order to allow for more flexure. So hopefully a little more force on the bolt, I'd be able to squeeze this thing together and get it to tighten up on the shaft. I don't know about you, but a kickstart lever
Flopping around on the shaft just drives me crazy.
Okay, I doubled the length of this relief slot. I wasn't satisfied with the hacksaw cut. It was kind of uneven and didn't look very good. So I managed to clamp this thing up in the middle, and I milled the 3/16 slot fully twice as long as the slot that was in there. And after applying what could only be described as brutal amounts of torque to this nut and bolt, the kickstart lever was still loose on the shaft. And I mean so that when I had this nut
as tight as I could, you could still slide the kickstart arm back and forth a little bit on the shaft. So what, pray tell, ended up being the fix? I walked this thing over to the hydraulic press and I squeezed it. I squeezed it in the area where the bolt passes through, and I actually pinched it down. I finally got it to the point where the square part in the arm, the square hole in the arm, was a snug fit over the shaft. When I got it back on the shaft, a little bit of moderate tightening of the bolt, and it finally tightened up like it was supposed to. What a tremendous pain in the balls to go through. You know, V-Twin contracted the shaft manufacturer and they contracted the arm manufacturer. You would have thought that the two companies that made these parts would have communicated with one another and come to an agreement on what size the hole had to be and what size the shaft had to be. Obviously, they didn't talk to one another. Just poor quality on this thing. I mean, it looks good. It's nice and sturdy, but it didn't fit worth a.
Okay, bets are down. Will these parts fit onto this lever without modification? Let's see. We got the spring clip. We got the bushing. Let's slide the spring clip, the bushing, and the pedal into place. Should be simple, right? Let's try 4 times.
My 2 favorite words in a project: suck and cess. So it's finally done. Everything is working. It's working good. But what a pain in the butt. It was brutal. This whole thing should have taken an hour, maybe a couple hours. I bet I worked on this thing for 5 or 6 hours until it was finally done. So let's wrap this project up. V-Twin kickstart kits. Would I use one again? No. To be fair, the best I could say about it is that all the parts are there. I had to significantly rework the kickstart arm. The fit between the arm and the shaft was horrible. I mean, this is elementary machining. A square peg in a square hole with, a couple of thousandths inch clearance. They muffed that up. The size of the kickstart shaft gear, they muffed that up. It ran into the primary cover. The ratchet plate, they muffed that up. They couldn't even get the rivet spacing even all the way around. Yeah, you could make it all work, but installing this thing should have been about a 2-hour job, maybe. It ended up being like a 5 or 6 hour job. Sucked. Whoops, said it again. Anyway, I will do whatever it takes to avoid buying one of these kits from V-Twin again. I will piece part it out no matter how much it costs. I just can't afford the time it takes to jimmy all their stuff around and get it to work. So I am out of here. In the meantime, get yourself a coffee cup. Support the channel. See the links below. Hey, thanks for watching. Tune in next time. I am out of here. Bye.